Wednesday show. Wednesday show. Wednesday show. Hello, everybody. Um, uh, I just got a message from someone. Just 1 second. Um, I'll talk to you after the Wednesday show. Okay, there we go. How's everyone doing? I don't know if you can hear me or if you're even there. I don't know if you listen to a gypsy's prayer. Hola. I I usually charge my Garmin, the watch, during the Wednesday show, and then all of a sudden I just realized that I still have my Garmin on, and the thing was just like sitting at me, be like, "Hey man, why aren't you charging me?" I don't understand it at all. Hey, we got an hola. Hiya, pal. Hey, hi. Yeah, so today we're going to be going through talking about Disney. Shocker. We decided to try something new today for our 716th episode. So I figured last week's episode went through pretty well, where we had nothing. We had no topic, and then you guys kind of went through and you chose the topic. Like we had no intention of doing a Herbie the Love Bug episode last Wednesday, and then you guys actually voted on doing a Herbie the Love Bug episode. So what I'm kind of thinking is, let's do it again. Let's do 3 options, and we'll do 3 options, and then after we go through the 3 options, we'll kind of go through, and you guys kind of choose, which one you want to go through and have it. So our topic is for today. I just watched Hunchback for the first time in forever the other day. It's been a long time since I've seen Hunchback of Notre Dame. It's a good film. Like, it's actually a very good film. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you 3 options, just like we did last week, and then you guys are going to choose. You're going to vote between those 3 options on which one you actually want to have. Whoa, what's going on there? Okay, I don't know what just happened. All right, so our 3 options today is we're going to do an Ask the Expert, or we're going to continue our Disney 100 series, or we'll do a Take a Hike segment. If you guys have never done a Take a Hike segment with us, what we do is we go through a specific area of Walt Disney World, and we literally take a hike and point out some of the fun facts, history, and all that other fun stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to you guys in the chat room. You guys figure out which one you want to do. Do you want to have it so we do an Ask the Expert? We're going to ask any question about anything and everything Disney. We can do a Disney 100, where we are continuing our series of 100 years of Disney, talking about the different things that happen each year. Or we can do a Take a Hike segment, where we continue going through and doing a literally hike around someplace at the Walt Disney World Resort. Not physically going there. We'll just be doing a vocal. Hello, this is Brent Dodge. Close your eyes and take 3 steps forward. Now take a look to the right and wave at the penguin. So you guys have about a minute to throw your votes into figuring out which one you want us to actually go through and talk about today. Or no one votes at all. one of the two. Right now we got people talking about other things, but we don't have anyone voting for which one you guys would like us to do. So throw the questions down, or throw the options down there. Okay, we got Take a Hike. Take a Hike. Take a Hike. Well, I take the hikes coming through. Take a hike. Take a hike. We're going to be taking a hike today. Cooking with Brent, making Disney recipes. Remember that episode? We did that episode the one time, and we almost burnt my condo to the ground. Take a hike. Okay, so we're going to be taking a hike. So now let's narrow this down even more. Okay, so throw your vote in. Do you guys want a Magic Kingdom, Epcot, Studios, or Animal Kingdom? Which park would you like us to go through and take a hike through? I kind of like this. I kind of like we're literally, you guys are calling all the shots here. Okay, so options are Magic Kingdom, Epcot, Disney's Hollywood Studios, or Disney's Animal Kingdom. Choose one of those four for our option. Disney Cruise Line will not be one of the options today. There we go. We got Magic Kingdom. I'm liking this. I'm liking this. I have no idea what we're going to be talking about, but that makes it even more exciting. It keeps my brain young, let me tell you. Animal Kingdom, not Typhoon Lagoon. I need a refresher. Typhoon Lagoon. I need to go over there. Magic Kingdom, Epcot, Magic Kingdom. So far, we got 3 votes for Magic Kingdom, 1 Animal Kingdom, 1 Epcot. We'll give it about another 15, 20 seconds to figure out if we're doing Magic Kingdom or Epcot or Animal Kingdom here. Looks like not Disney's Hollywood Studios, though. No love for Disney's Hollywood Studios today. Okay, we'll do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's narrow this down just a little bit further here. Which land would you like us to take a hike through? Would you like us to take a hike through Main Street, USA, Tomorrowland, Liberty Square, Fantasyland, Adventureland, or Frontierland? 6 options today. Throw your votes into the comments below. Which land would you like us to go through? Again, the options: Main Street, USA, Fantasyland, Tomorrowland, Liberty Square, Frontierland, or Adventureland. Throw your votes down below. This is going to be our final vote. So whatever you guys land on right here is going to be what we're going to be talking about tonight. We got Fantasyland. Right now, 2 votes Fantasyland, 0 votes for anything else. We could take it one. No, we're not going to take it another step further. We're going to Fantasyland, Adventureland for Pirates of the Caribbean. Liberty Square. Ooh, another vote for Adventureland. I'll give you guys about another 15, 20 seconds to throw your votes in there. Right now, Fantasyland is in the lead. We got 3 votes Fantasyland, 2 votes Adventureland, 1 vote Liberty Square. So we're just going to give you guys a few more seconds. I'm watching the clock right now. We got about 10 more seconds to throw your votes in there. Right now, Adventureland's 1 vote behind Fantasyland. Will it catch up? It does not look like it's going to. Fantasyland is going to be our land that we're going to be talking about tonight. Okay, so let's start us off with a little book called A Closer Look at the Magic Kingdom's Fantasyland by Brent Dodge. No, we're not going to go through the book. However, what we are going to be doing is going through and taking a hike through Fantasyland. Now, if you've never joined us for a Take a Hike segment before, hey, take a hike. In our Take a Hike segment, we are not going into massive detail about a specific attraction. We're actually going to be kind of taking a hike and pointing out different details, different fun facts all along the way from start to finish throughout the entire land. Now, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking a hike through Fantasyland from Cinderella Castle around the 7 Dwarfs Mine Train until we eventually go through New Fantasyland and then eventually make our way past Peter Pan and It's a Small World until we get into Liberty Square. So let's take a hike right now. Okay, so starting off in Fantasyland, before we actually enter into Fantasyland, let's take a look outside of Fantasyland, because if you're actually going through the different parts of the Magic Kingdom, there are so many amazing different details that you can find throughout the park. We have a cool Tomorrowland sign that can be found over near the entrance of Tomorrowland. And we also have another cool one that has been added over by Storybook Circus. Over in Adventureland, we got that really cool bridge with different skulls on top, kind of entering into over by the hub. Over Liberty Square, we got the same thing. Frontierland's got its own sign as well. And then Fantasyland does not really have its own little sign. Like, there's no indicator that we're actually entering into Fantasyland except for that massive castle right in the center of the park. So Cinderella Castle, let's talk a little bit about Cinderella Castle before we go through Cinderella Castle, because Cinderella Castle is the main icon of pretty much the entire Walt Disney World Resort. Now, Cinderella Castle was designed not to look exactly like Cinderella Castle from the movie. If you've ever seen that film, it kind of looks like this castle right here on my book From Screen to Theme. A little more plain, a little bit more there. The reason for this, because maybe you have gone over to Disneyland, and when you're at Disneyland, you're looking at the castle over there for Sleeping Beauty Castle and thinking it kind of looks a lot, not a ton, but it has a very similar look to Sleeping Beauty Castle that's actually found in the film, and this one is not like Cinderella Castle in the film. Now, there is a reason because of that. So when they were creating Disneyland, when they're going through that and creating the castle over there, they were also making the film of Sleeping Beauty. Sleeping Beauty actually started production back in 1951. It would go all the way through 1959. Now, in the middle of all that, they also were creating Disneyland. So with Disneyland, they decided they're going to promote Disneyland and Sleeping Beauty by having them intertwine once together. So that's why we have Sleeping Beauty Castle over at Disneyland. Now, when they were creating Walt Disney World, they said, you know what, we need to have a brand new castle that's also based off of a character we already know and love. And one of the most recent characters that they had not used yet was not Sleeping Beauty, it was Cinderella, because her film came out in 1950. So when we created Sleeping Beauty Castle, or I'm sorry, Cinderella Castle here, there are a few different details that we should take a look at. Now, number one, bling, it is not called Cinderella's Castle. There is no apostrophe S. It is Cinderella Castle. Now, this is not because it's not Cinderella's castle. Cinderella does live there. However, that is just the name of the castle. It is Cinderella Castle, not Cinderella's castle, because she is not in possession of it. Actually, it does truly belong to Prince Charming and his family. It started off with their castle, but they actually renamed the castle as Cinderella Castle, as a nod to the new princess, Cinderella. Now, while we are going through this area, we're going to have a few different times where we're going to be taking a look at the story of Cinderella. Our first one is going to be while we're actually walking through the castle. Now, on your left-hand side, you can find a few different mosaics, all actually hand-placed there, and it took about a year to actually complete. Through these mosaics, we can tell the story of Cinderella, from her getting the invitation to the ball, her getting the glass slipper, her running away from the ball, and eventually her falling madly in love with Prince Charming as the two of them sail away on the sunset. They're on a horse. I don't know, they're galloping off into the sunset. It's beautiful. It's lovely. Aww. However, we do have a few cool little details found at this mosaic that most people just walk on by and never really pay attention to. Now, our first one is Anastasia and Drizella, the evil stepsisters, or the ugly stepsisters. I don't like when people say that they're ugly stepsisters, because I don't think they're ugly. I think they're kind of beautiful. But anyways, they're the evil stepsisters because, well, they're just pure evil. So when you go through and you look at the evil stepsisters' faces, Anastasia and Drizella, Anastasia's face is red with envy, and Drizella's is red with anger and green with envy, as the tributes to how they would actually be feeling in those moments with Cinderella herself. Now, when we're actually going through the other side of Cinderella Castle, on our right-hand side, we will be passing Cinderella's royal table. Now, originally, this was not called Cinderella's royal table. It was actually called King Stephen's banquet hall. Now, King Stephen, if you know your Disney history, you might know that he's actually from the 1959 film Sleeping Beauty, which we've already talked about. We've already talked about quite a bit tonight about. However, that is Sleeping Beauty's dad. That is not Cinderella's dad. So they switched the name back in the 1990s to Cinderella's royal table. Just after exiting that area, you'll take a look back at the castle, and up on the right-hand side, you can find 3 windows that are really tall and long. And those 3 windows tell the story of Cinderella, along with 3 other tall windows that face towards Sleepy Hollow over on the other side. Now, if you're looking at these ones from the inside of the room, that's actually inside the royal suite or the dream suite. On our left-hand side, we have it. So we have the Chateau of Lady Tremaine. The next one is the Invitation to the Ball. The next one is the Glass Slipper. The next one is the Clock Striking Midnight. Then we have Jacques and Gus with the key. And then our final one is Cinderella Castle. So it goes through and tells the story of Cinderella in 6 different very simple panes of glass. Now, speaking of the story of Cinderella, we've already seen it twice. However, we have a third time that is right behind you while you are facing towards those 3 windows. If you take a look around, you can find the fountain over there that's called the Rags to Riches. Now, the reason it's called Rags to Riches is because of a really cool little detail that most people just don't really pay attention to. Now, this is a location where you can actually find a bubbler, or a drinking fountain if you're not from Wisconsin. And at the bubbler, there are 4 different bubblers here, and in the middle of it, we have Cinderella, and then behind her, we have a painting on the wall. It seems pretty simple. Most people don't really pay attention to it. However, we are going to pay attention to it today because on here you can actually have a crown. Now, the reason this crown is here is because when you're looking at Cinderella, she is in her rags from the film at the start of the film before she became any type of royalty. So when you're actually looking at her, she is in rags. But then if you line up perfectly, you can see that the crown falls on her head, making her riches. Now, I also want to point out the bubblers or the drinking fountains. The reason that we have bubblers here, they are at the perfect height of a child, because if you go to Disney, you'll often know that the cast members go around and they tell all the little boys that they are princes and all the little girls they are princesses. So because of that, the kids are at the perfect height of the bubbler and they do not bow to Cinderella because they, just like Cinderella, are royalty. However, they are very low for adults to do. So whenever an adult needs to get a drink from the bubbler, they have to bend down and bow to the royalty that is Cinderella right in front of us. Now, right behind her, we have the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique. Now, the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique has gone through several different changes throughout the years. However, let's talk about two of them. Now, our first one that we're going to talk about is something that you can still see to this very day when you're looking at the window that is facing towards the other side of Sir Mickey's. If you take a look at the window there, you can actually see the drawings for Cinderella's dress that her mother would have. And then also we would see a prototype of the dress that she would have before the evil stepsisters became evil. Well, they're already evil, but before they had their giant triumph of actually stealing all the beads and making sure that her dress was ruined, and then she would run off to the, fairy godmother. But the other thing I want to point out is prior to this being Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique, it was the the Castle Culture Shop, and before that it was Tinkerbell's Treasures. Now I want to point out Tinkerbell's Treasures because we still have one reference to the Tinkerbell shop to this day that's still hanging around. There were a few up until a few years ago. Two of my favorite little details that they had in this entire area was at the one door that's facing towards the carousel. On the right and the left-hand side, you had these little stained glass window pieces, and one of them was Captain Hook, the other one was Tick-Tock Crocodile. Tick-Tock Crocodile and Mr. Smee, not Captain Hook. Overall, really, really cool details. But if you still go around the corner to where the old Sources of the Magic Kingdom spot was, you can actually still see to this day right above the window that there is a Tinkerbell there. If you actually went into that shop back in like 2010 when it was still Tinkerbell's Treasures, you could go to the counter and you could tell the people that you wanted to summon Tinkerbell. They would give you a little bell. You start ringing it and go, Tinkerbell, Tinkerbell. And they had this really cool special effect where there'd be pixie dust flying throughout the entire store until Tinkerbell would appear in a window behind the cashiers, and then she would fly off into who knows where. But anyways, that was kind of like our little history about that area. Now, right across the way, I did bring up the idea of Sir Mickey's. Now, Sir Mickey's is one of those places that a lot of people will say, oh, it's based off that short cartoon, Mickey and the Beanstalk. Not exactly. It's kind of based off of that, but it's also based off of the Brave Little Tailor. Now, there are two different storylines that are going on here. However, both of them do kind of deal with giants, so I can see how people would think it's just one of them, but not actually both of them. But in reality, we do touch on both of them here. Now, if you go to the window that's facing towards the other side, towards Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique, so the two windows are actually facing towards each other. The one with Cinderella's dress, the other one has it so we see a little mannequin where you would actually, a tailor would go through and create stuff. And if you look inside that window, you can find a few different things that would be from the Brave Little Tailor thing, including his scissors, all the different fabric that he would actually go through to create different things. And then the most important one of all would be the fly swatter, because that's how the entire story started, with him saying, I killed 5 in one blow, meaning flies. But in reality, the people outside thought that he was talking about the giants, so they hired him to go kill a giant. If you go inside the shop in the back corner, you can also find Minnie there. Minnie was never in the Mickey the Beanstalk short. However, she was in the Brave Little Tailor. And then if you go through the main section of the store, you will see the giant beanstalk going through, and you will also find Willie the Giant. Willie the Giant was the giant that he would go up the stalk along with Donald and Goofy in the Mickey the Beanstalk short. And when he got to the very top there, he would head Willie the Giant. Willie the Giant at the end would be looking all around for Mickey Mouse, because Mickey Mouse was the one who bested him at the very end of the film. Now, to pay tribute to this, if you remember, Mickey and the Beanstalk was not just a short cartoon. It was eventually in the film Fun and Fancy Free. So at the end of Fun and Fancy Free, we have Willie the Giant going through all of Hollywood and picking up different buildings, or picking up the roofs of the different buildings and looking inside because he's trying to find Mickey Mouse. So if you actually look at the top part of the shop away from the door, you can actually see Willie the Giant looking in because he is once again looking for Mickey Mouse. And if you want to look over the registers, you can actually find Mickey on the beanstalk. Final fact that we're going to talk about before we exit on and go over to our next location. Ugh, this is like, I feel like this is kind of crazy because you guys literally just chose the topic, and I don't even think we're going to get through all of Fantasy, but we're going to try. By golly, we're going to try. Oh, by the way, tonight's episode is sponsored by It's All About the Mouse Travel. Make sure you stop by it'sallaboutthemouse.com for all of your Disney travel needs. All their services are absolutely positively 100% totally free. I forgot to say at the start, I forgot to do any of my being notes. Actually, now that I think about it, today is the 716th episode of the Wednesday Show. Today we're going to be doing the Take a Hike episode. I'm Brent Dutch, blah, 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 blah. Okay, let's continue on here because I just started rambling at the start and I never stopped rambling and I just realized I never even did my intro today. Whew. Okay, anyways, we're going to continue our 716th episode right now. So if you're looking at the windows inside of Sir Mickey's that are facing towards Cinderella Castle, you'll notice that a lot of the different things in here are dealing with the Sword in the Stone. So you've got Merlin stuff there, you've got Archimedes' cage there, and then we also have a spell on the board that says Higgidus, Figgidus. This is actually a reference not just to the Sword in the Stone, but this location actually at one point was a Sword in the Stone themed gift shop. Other things that it was also themed around at different points. It was at one point Mickey's Christmas Carol gift shop. So the Eels Christmas shop over at Liberty Square was not the Christmas shop at one point. Instead, it was over here in Fantasyland. Okay, let's continue going on. Let's go over to the carousel because the carousel is just amazing. So over at the carousel, we have Prince Charming's Real Carousel. It used to be Cinderella's Royal Carousel. Yes. So above there, we have 16 different panels, 18 different panels. They go through and tell the entire story of Cinderella. Cinderella was a fella. No, Cinderella dressed in yellow. I don't know. You remember there was the whole jump roping thing from back in like the 90s. Anyways, that's completely different. Oh, Cinderella kissed a fella wearing yellow. I don't remember the rest. So someone type it out for me. I don't know what it is. I never played. I just overheard the girls saying it all the time. We only had 4 girls in my class growing up, and they would play that every single day. That's besides the point. Okay, so let's talk about one of the cool little details about this area. Now, Prince Charming's Real Carousel. If you look at it today, it is centered right behind Cinderella Castle. So if you would actually look from Main Street, USA, it is dead center. However, before they actually opened up the park, Roy Disney noticed that the carousel was a little off, and he actually ordered it to be moved a few inches over to the side. So originally, it was a little off from where it is today, but because of Roy Disney and his attention to detail, we now have the carousel where it currently sits today, which is just a little bit off from where it was originally. Over on the other side, we have the Princess Fairy Tale Hall. Now, in the Princess Fairy Tale Hall, we can meet 4 different princesses. They do vary from time to time, but typically it is Tiana, Rapunzel, Cinderella, and sometimes Princess Elena of Aladar, and sometimes someone else. But it does kind of vary depending on what day you're actually there. Let's do a few different cool fun facts about this. So if you actually look outside of the shop, there are 11 different shields. The 11 different shields focus on different things like a spinning wheel, a reference to Sleeping Beauty, a bow and arrow, a reference to Merida, an apple, a reference to Snow White, and different references to every single one of the Disney princesses up until the point when that spot would actually open up. So if you take a look out there, you can find the different references from everyone from Snow White all the way up until, I want to say, not Tiana, I want to say Rapunzel. Yes, I'm sticking with Rapunzel. Rapunzel, final answer. So everyone from Snow White to Rapunzel, you can find a different reference to all the different princesses. So like there's different like things like leaves blowing in the wind, which Pocahontas, the genius lamp for Jasmine, etc., etc., etc. So also inside of this spot, this actually one time was the home for Snow White Scary Adventures. Actually, it originally opened up as Snow White Scary Adventures on October 1st, 1971, all the way up until April 30th, 2012. Yes, locking in the answer. That was the final date, April 30th, 2012. Eventually it would close up, mainly due to the fact that they're going to be opening up the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train right around the corner. They couldn't have two Snow White attractions, so they decided to have it so there's only one Snow White attraction. So if you go inside of the area, still to this day, you can also find books that are over by the meet and greet areas, and the book stories, the storybooks that they have there, tell the story of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs as a little tribute to the attraction that once sat there. Continuing on our way around, we have Friar Nooks. Now, Friar Nooks is a reference to the Friar Tuck from Robin Hood from the 1973 film. If you look at the top, you can see the establishment date is from 1071 as a reference to it being back in the days when Friar Tuck would have been alive instead of when we are all alive. Right next to him, we have Storybook Treats, which is an ice cream shop. Prior to this being Storybook Treats, it at one point was Mrs. Potts Cupboard, and Mrs. Potts Cupboard had ice cream, just the same, so no real big difference. But before that, it was Gurgi's Munchies and Crunchies. Gurgi being a reference to the film The Black Cauldron, where Gurgi always had his Munchies and Crunchies, Munchies and Crunchies. Right next to that, we have the Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, along with its gift shop. Now, before the Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, it was Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. And not only did we have Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, but if you go to the gift shop, that part was actually part of Mr. Toad's Wild Ride as well. Because if you go to Mr. Toad's Wild Ride currently over at Disneyland, you may realize that the Mr. Toad's Wild Ride one, hello AMC Theaters. If you go over to Mr. Toad's Wild Ride that's still currently going over in Disneyland, there is one track. However, the one that was here at Magic Kingdom used to be two different tracks. What? Yeah. So there was actually two different tracks that were here. So the attraction was a little bit longer, but when they shortened it up to the Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, they only put one track in, and then in addition to that, they put a gift shop in there as well. Now, prior to 2010, there was a completely different queue that was found for the Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. The old queue used to be giant storybook pages that would tell you the story of what you were going into. That's why when you actually go into the ride still to this day, you would see Chapter 2 is the first chapter, because in reality, Chapter 1 is something that you would have read while you were walking through the actual queue. Now, they decided to go through and make an interactive queue back in 2010/2011 with this brand new interactive queue. They added a few different fun features, including jumping on things and having little gophers pop up, or having it so you're playing tug of war with a gopher, or knocking on a door and hearing Piglet inside, or going through Eeyore's house. In addition to that, we also have a massive tree out front, which is supposed to look like Christopher Robin's tree, or Winnie the Pooh's tree, the tree that he would actually live in. This actually used to sit across the way at Pooh's Playful Spot, which was the interactive area that took over the spot that was 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Now, if you go inside of this tree, still to this day, you can actually find a carving above the door, not the main door, but the other door. You can find a little carving there of the Nautilus as a reference to 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, because that took the place of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and then it just made its way across the street in 2010. Now, there was one more interactive feature that used to be around for literally one day and one day only, and I am so happy that I was able to experience this interactive feature, but where you can currently go meet Winnie the Pooh and Tigger, still to this day. That actually was not a meet and greet area. That was actually a Tigger bounce area. So what guests could do is they could bounce on these little tiles that looked like Tigger stripes. You could bounce on there, it would lower down and then kind of give you a spring to go up. And then eventually they realized after they put it in that there is a very, 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 very high chance that people are going to die because it was, anyways. So moving on to our next location, we're going to go across the street to Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. Now, Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, like I said, would replace Pooh's Playful Spot. In addition to Pooh's Playful Spot, it would also eventually replace, or not eventually, it would take the place of where 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea was at one point. In addition to that, the area that's kind of behind it just didn't really exist. Now, the interesting thing about Seven Dwarfs Mine Train is Seven Dwarfs Mine Train didn't really supposed to exist at all either. Also, let's acknowledge this. Every time you hear Crunchies, I think of Canine Crunchies. Such a great song. Canine Crunchies, good to eat. From 101 Dalmatians. So anyways, I'm talking really fast. Am I talking too fast? I'm going to take a drink of water. I'm just so excited. We're talking about Fantasyland. All right, let's continue here. So, Seven Doors Mine Train would place Please Playful Spot, which would place 20,000 Leagues Unseen. However, like I said, that area was not supposed to be there originally. So originally, when they were creating New Fantasyland, what they wanted to do is they wanted to have it so there was a bunch of different interactive features where you could actually go through and meet different people. So the idea originally was going to have it so there was going to be an Enchanted Tales with Belle. Hey, it came about. And then there's going to be two other ideas that you were going to have. One of them was actually tested out in Disneyland. I was actually out at Disneyland when they were doing the testing, and it was having it so you could go learn how to be a prince or princess and learn how to waltz, or you could learn how to be a knight and learn how to, slay a dragon. This was for kids and kids only. However, I participated, even though I was like 23 at the time, because I wanted to participate. So they let me go, swing a sword around and stuff. Overall, really fun experience. But the idea was to have it so you would go through Lady Tremaine's house and then eventually get to Cinderella's castle inside, and it would transport you to and from the castle that was like across the way. But you would actually go inside there, and while you're inside there, it would allow you to learn how to do these things, and then they would have like a little ball for you to kind of participate in. So that was going to be one of the interactive meet and greet areas. The other one was going to be focused around Aurora, aka Sleeping Beauty, aka Briar Rose, aka whatever you want to call her. So this one was going to be the idea that she missed her 16th birthday because she was asleep. She was put under a spell. She never got to celebrate her birthday. So you would be going through the three fairies, Flora, Fauna, and Merryweather. You'd be going through their cottage, and they would go through and help you create a birthday cake along with different presents, and then you would throw her a surprise party. What? Unfortunately, a lot of people complained because they said, you know what, there's so many different meet and greets that you guys are announcing for New Fantasyland and not enough attractions. All we're getting is one brand new attraction, which would be the Under the Sea Little Mermaid, Journey to the Little Mermaid attraction, and nothing else. And so they said, okay, we're going to take a step back. We're going to get rid of two of those things. They're going to be in the middle, and we'll create a brand new attraction called the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. So the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train would be the replacement for Snow White's Scary Adventure. Still an amazing attraction altogether. So let's point out two really cool fun facts that are inside this. First off, the vultures that are at the top of the hill, along with most of the dwarfs, but not all the dwarfs, that are found at the end are actually the real animatronics from Snow White's Scary Adventures. They just took them from across the way and then they placed them into the brand new attraction. In addition to that, this would be the very first place that we would actually have a hidden Oswald the Lucky Rabbit placed inside of the Disney parks. So when you're going up the final hill before you would drop down to your doom, on the left-hand side, you can see in the wood carving that there is a carving of Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. It is much easier to see him if you're there during the day because the lighting is like the sunlight's coming through, and so it's easier to see. If you go at night, you can still kind of see it, but you have to really know what you're looking for. Okay, so let's continue going down towards the Mad Tea Party. Now, the Mad Tea Party would be a classic opening day attraction, October 1st, 1971. Not a whole this area. However, if you look at the top in the center of the teapot, you do have the door mouse who keeps on popping his head in and out. And then also one of my favorite little details is outside there is a leaf, and the leaf has a reference to an Imagineer who went through and had a last lecture. Now, this Imagineer, Randy Pausch, I want to say his name is. Don't quote me on that. I'm almost positive. He was originally an Imagineer, then he went on to become a professor, and when he found out that he was dying, he decided to go through and do a famous last lecture. And on it, or during it, he would go through and kind of point out about how you should bring something to the table because it makes you more valuable. And if you look outside, you can actually find a leaf with his quotes out there as a nod to him because his favorite attraction was the Mad Tea Party. All right, continuing down into Storybook Circus, because yes, that is actually part of Fantasyland. We've got two different attractions that are over here. Our first one is going to be Dumbo the Flying Elephant. Now, inside Dumbo the Flying Elephant, it was a classic attraction. If you want to know which one of these Dumbos was the original Dumbo that actually sat behind the carousel at one point, it's the one that's closer to the castle. So the one that's closer to the castle is the actual Dumbo that was originally over in the center of Fantasyland. They just moved it, redesigned it a little bit, and added some new different details and structures onto it to make it the Dumbo that we all know and love today. And then on the other side, we have a brand new Dumbo, and together they are considered the dueling Dumbos. Originally, the idea was to have it so both Dumbos would be flying at the same time and a little bit closer to each other, So it would look like you're kind of coming in towards the other Dumbos. Eventually, they separated them out a little bit further. They also decided to bring in a brand new interactive feature where you would have an interactive play area where guests could play while they waited for their group to be called. Now, one of my favorite things that's inside of this area is if you look in the center of the ring, there is a little fire truck, and then on the back wall of the little fire truck, there is a painting of seven different clowns with different masks on or they're painting on and stuff. These 7 clowns are actually a reference to the old group, the Firehouse 5+2. So if you've ever gone to Disneyland back in the 1950s or 1960s, you may have seen one of these opening day acts, which is called the Firehouse 5+2, which actually consisted of different animators that would come out and they would actually play their different musical instruments as a band called the Firehouse 5+2. One of them was Ward Kimball. Ward Kimball's like famous for like these massive glasses. It's really easy to spot him. So there's a caricature of him there, and there's a caricature of a few different people that you may recognize. Right next to that area, we do have the Barnstormer, starring the great Goofini. Now, if you look at the Barnstormer, there is a few different details that are really cool to point out. However, we're going to point out my favorite one of all. There are 3 different possible planes that you can fly on the Barnstormer. Now, at any given day, there's only 2 that are actually out on the track, and there's always one that's in the shed. However, the 3 numbers for these planes are number 5, number 19, and number 32. This is a reference to May 1932, the month and year that Goofy would actually make his debut. It's too bad they don't have a 4th one, so they could have the number 25 in there, because he did debut on May 25th, 1932. Going across the way, we have Casey Jr. Splash and Soak area. We've got 4 different train cabooses there, train carts there. On the back of each one of these carts, we do have a number. One of them is 71, one's 82, one's 89, and the other one's 98. The references here are the opening years of the 4 parks at Walt Disney World. In the center there, we do have Casey Jr. himself. Around the corner on the back of the one that's right behind Casey, you actually do have a hidden Mickey that's made in the clouds, but there are a few things that are kind of in front of it, so you have to pretend that those aren't there to make the giant hidden Mickey that's there. Behind that area, we do have another spot that we have to take a look at, which is going to be Pete's Silly Sideshow. Now, at Pete's Silly Sideshow, you can meet 4 different characters. You can meet the Great Goofini, you can meet Mysterious Donald, you can meet Daisy Duck, and you can also meet the Magnificent Minnie. All 4 of them are in unique costumes that you can only meet at these specific locations. But if you go to the front of this area, you can also find some really cool fun facts. One of them is that there's this giant jalopy out front, and the giant jalopy says "Toot, Whistle, Plunk, and Boom," a reference to the 1953, I want to say 1953, short cartoon called "Toot, Whistle, Plunk, and Boom." It would go on to win an Academy Award. In addition to that, we also have a reference to the film Melody Time, called Melody Time. And on the bottom of it, the actual name of the entire company is called Melody Time. Right around the corner from that, we do have Big Top Souvenirs. Inside of it, we have, I pointed this actually out on my YouTube channel, on my YouTube Shorts yesterday. We have it, so there's a fire extinguishers inside. The fire extinguishers do read the Firehouse 5, which is a reference again to that Firehouse 5+2 musical group from Disneyland that we were talking about earlier. If you continue going down into New Fantasyland, we're eventually going to make our way into Under the Sea Journey of the Little Mermaid. Over at Under the Sea Journey to the Journey of the Little Mermaid. Before we get there, let's take one little quick stop at the meet and greet area for Ariel. If you look at the meet and greet area for Ariel out front, you can actually see that the rockwork there are massive giant shells. Most people just kind of walk by them, not really paying attention, but they're giant shells, seashells on the top. Why did Sally sell seashells by the seashore? Like, that's kind of, you can go buy seashells wherever you want. Like, you can find millions of seashells there. That's a terrible business practice on her end. Why did she do that? Anyways. So right across from the meet and greet, we have a DVC booth. Now, this DVC booth is a cartography office, and the cartography office says Herb Ryman being the person who would actually go through and create the actual map of Disneyland itself. He would also come over and create most of the stuff for Walt Disney World as well. Behind that area is one of my favorite little details found in Fantasyland that most people just walk by and they never really pay attention to, but it'll have this massive map on the back wall. Now, on this massive map, we have a few different cool, fun finds. One of them is the 4 original cruise line ships. We've got the Wish. I'm sorry, not the Wish. That's the only one that I couldn't say. And that's the first one I say. The Magic, the Wonder, the Dream, and the Fantasy are all scattered around the water. In addition to that, we've got Disneyland, Walt Disney World, Disneyland Paris, Disneyland Tokyo, and Disneyland Hong Kong found it. Shanghai was not around when this map was created, so that is not there. But in addition to that, we also have 4 different characters that are scattered around. In the middle, in the bottom, we have Ursula, and Ursula is just sitting there like, being a sea witch. And then in addition to that, we also have a monster from the ocean kind of coming up and attacking the ship. We have sirens that are calling different people. And then we also have another like giant fish that's about to eat some people. Now, if you actually go across the way to Under the Sea, Journey of the Little Mermaid, there is a few different parts of the queue that we have to focus on. But the first one we're going to talk about is the end of the line, because that kind of connects us to what we're talking about right now. So at the end of the line, there's an extended queue area. And when you're inside this extended queue area, if you take a look up at the top, there is a dome there. There are 8 different panels on the dome. 4 of these panels are the 4 different sea creatures that you can find on the map over the DVC spot. Next to those, and in between them, you can actually see different rhymes or poems or whatever you want to call it, that go through explaining what's going on in each picture, where we have the different characters that are, essentially trying to kill any sea life, or anyone coming into the sea life, I should say. Going back a little bit earlier into the queue line, we have a few other fun facts that we can take a look at. One of them would be, while you're going through, this also took the place of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. So when you're going through the outside part, right before you get to the caves, if you take a look at the left-hand side, in the back part of a wall, there's like a little spot in the middle that's kind of sticking up. It's just to distract you, so just kind of look around it. But on the back wall, you have another carving of the Nautilus, except for this one's massive, going from one side of the wall all the way to the other side, as a nod to the former attraction that sat at this location. When you're going through the cave, you can find these different crabs there. Now, if you read the signs, most people don't read the signs. They just walk right on by. But the signs pretty much say, if the crabs bring something that does not belong with what's around them. So if you look at the different things, there's one that's a bunch of portholes. So if a crab brings out a porthole, he'll just bring it to the end and let it go. But he might bring out a book or something. And then when he brings out the book, he's sitting there waiting for you to point at him saying, no, that's not right. So if you point at the crab and he's got something that's not found around the screen that you're looking at, he'll actually run it away. Now, the reason this is important is because when you get to the next room, you have Scuttle there. And when Scuttle's in there, he's got 2 crabs that are usually, sometimes more, but usually 2 crabs that are coming in, bringing in different items. The different items that they're actually bringing in are the different items that you were just pointing at and sending it away. And what he's doing is he's going through and explaining what each one of these items actually means. Now, when you actually go through the actual attraction, we're just going to talk about my biggest disappointment in this ride, because I think this is an amazing attraction. The only thing I wish is, if you remember, Storybook Circus took the location of the area, which would eventually, or which started off, it didn't even start off at, it started off as Mickey's Birthday Land back in 1988, but then eventually a few years later, it would become Mickey's Starland, and then it would become Mickey's Toontown Fair, and now it's Storybook Circus. When it became Mickey's Starland, Mickey's Birthday Land, I think it was as early as, it was Mickey's Starland. They would have it so in the center of the town square, they added a brand new statue of Cornelius Coote. Now, I know a lot of people are like, oh yeah, Cornelius Coote, I love him. But if you're not Eric, then then you're probably like, I don't know exactly who you're talking about. Cornelius Coote is the great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather of Donald Duck. He would also be who Scrooge McDuck's sister would marry into that family, but that's besides the point. So there used to be a statue in the center, and on it said, "Here lies old Cornelius Coote. He turned his corn into loot. He founded Mickey's Toontown Fair, so due to that, we dedicate the square." It's almost exactly that. And when Mickey's Toontown Fair disappeared, I was like, oh, I hope that's like the reference that they use. Like, I wish they would have taken that statue and placed it inside of Ariel's Grotto, and they didn't, and I'm still mad about it, and it's been like 11 years, but that's besides the point. When you're actually exiting the attraction, we will talk about this one right here, because Eric is right. This could be the best hidden Mickey outside of Ariel. It could be the best hidden Mickey anywhere, not just in Walt Disney World, but any Disney property at all. So while you're exiting and you take a look right to the right, you can see you can see the Lightning Lane entrance. If you look in front of the Lightning Lane entrance, you can see a few different rock formations. Now, there are 4 different rock formations here. If you actually line it up perfectly, the 4 different rock formations together create a very elaborate Steamboat Willie Mickey, starting with his boots on the ground, working his way up. You've got his shorts. His one foot goes out one way, his other foot goes down. It's the exact pose of the Steamboat Willie whistle thing. Now I'm looking around. Do I have any Steamboat Willie stuff over here? No, I know I've got Steamboat Willie stuff up there, up on the shelf. I've got 3 Steamboat Willie things up there, but none of them are actually in that pose either. But anyways, so it's the famous pose of him kind of with the steering wheel. You actually have the steering wheel there as well, along with his Steamboat Willie hat. It's a very cool Mickey. I've got a YouTube short about that hidden Mickey as well. But yes, Eric, best hidden Mickey outside of Ariel, probably the best hidden Mickey anywhere on Disney property. 100% agree with that statement. Okay, going around the corner, we have Bonjour Village Gifts. Now, Bonjour Village Gifts is a French place. It is supposed to be the bookstore which Belle would go to. On the back wall, we have a picture of a man who is sitting there with all his scholarly stuff on. And a lot of people probably look at him and think, I don't know who this is. Well, that is Phil Holmes. Phil Holmes was the president of the Magic Kingdom, and eventually after he would open up New Fantasyland, he was actually the president of the Magic Kingdom for years and years and years. He actually started off at the Magic Kingdom on October 1st, 1971, working at the Haunted Mansion, just to give you a little Phil Holmes trivia. Eventually, he would become the president of the Magic Kingdom. I met him on multiple occasions when I was a custodian, and then eventually, after he helped, lead the charge for New Fantasyland, they actually moved him over to Disney's Hollywood Studios, where he would help open up Toy Story Land and Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, and then after that, he would actually retire. But let's talk a little bit about this painting, because on this painting, you have several different items that can be found that are referencing different things around Fantasyland. Now, first off, the book that's in front of him is one of the coolest things ever, because it's actually a map of the Magic Kingdom before New Fantasyland was added to the thing. So if you want to see what the park looked like before New Fantasyland, look at that. Like, it still has Mickey's Toontown Fair on there and stuff. In addition to that, there's different things around the around the painting, the very elegant painting, that need to be paid attention to. Some of them are peanuts as a reference to Dumbo, an apple as a reference to Snow White, and a few different things like the genie's lamp as well. So take a look at that next time you are in there and give it a little bit more love. In addition to that, you can also find that on his finger is a ring. That ring is actually the 40th anniversary ring for the Walt Disney Company, so that you would get that if you worked there for 40 years. So as a tribute to, his 40 years. Behind him, there was a Duckster, which was one of the awards that Walt Disney actually created. The first one was ever given to the actress who would play the stunt double for Haley Mills, or the other child for Haley Mills in The Parent Trap, and then eventually became a thing where he would hand it out to different people throughout the years, and then the tradition continued for years and years and years, and Phil Holmes is one of the recipients, and that's why we have a Duckster that's behind him. Okay, going around the corner over here, we also have Gaston's Tavern. Inside of Gaston's Tavern, there's not a whole lot of really cool details. However, one of the things I do like to point out to people is if you look at the different pictures that are on the wall, they just look like, pictures that kind of could come out of Beauty and the Beast. That's because they're actually reproductions of the posters, of the landscape scenes from Beauty and the Beast. So if you look at the one when you walk in on the right-hand side, it may look very familiar. That's because that is the same road that Maurice would actually travel over at the start of the film. Right next to that, we have Be Our Guest. Be Our Guest. Put our service to the test. Now, Be Our Guest is one of the coolest restaurants on property, but it's very expensive, so I don't eat there very often. I used to eat there more often when they had like the cheap lunch option, and I wish they would bring that back because it's just such a cool restaurant. But that's a whole different day. But there are 3 different dining areas inside of here. We're going to talk about all 3 of them very briefly here. Our first one is the main dining room, which is the ballroom. If you take a look at the top, you have the cherubs, or the little, babies with the wings, the little angels. If you take a look at these angels, you may be thinking they don't look like the ones that were in the film exactly. That's because they're not. They're actually reproductions of paintings of the ones in the films, but with the faces of the Imagineers that actually worked on the restaurant. If you go to the back side, you can actually go to the West Wing. Inside the West Wing, we do have the petal falling, and then every now and then you would see lightning strike outside, and when the lightning strikes outside, the picture of Beast as Adam, Prince Adam, the human form, it switches back and forth of him as a beast and him as a human whenever the lightning strikes. So if the lightning strikes, pay attention. On the other side of the grand dining room, we have one of my, actually, I think it's my favorite room in the entire restaurant. I think like the grand hall room is really cool because it reminds me of the movie. But this other one is made specifically for this restaurant. So while you're in here, there's all these different tapestries that are found all around the walls. And if you take a look at these different tapestries around the walls, you'll notice that they are different scenes that would kind of fill in the missing spots throughout the film about different characters that you may have not really been like, oh, I wonder what was happening with like the footstool in this scene. Well, there's a picture of what he was doing during that scene. So overall, really cool. But the main attraction inside of this room is in the center of the area because it's going to connect us to our next location. So we have to talk about it. In the center of the entire area, there is a massive music box of Belle and Beast, and it spins around in circles while playing very beautiful music. Do 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 do. Do, 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 do. I know you're thinking, oh, it's a beautiful music box. I wish I could have one. I wish I knew where it came from. Well, that's a really good question there, viewer. Let's talk about where it came from. Because if we continue on our hike around New Queensland, what is that? Oh, it's a pin. Ironically, the Mad Tea Party. If we continue on our tour, the next spot we'll get to is Enchanted Tales with Belle. So inside of Enchanted Tales with Belle, we start off in Maurice's cottage. While you're going through Maurice's cottage, there are a few different details that most people just kind of walk by and not really pay attention to. One of them is much like a lot of people who are growing up. When you're growing up, you probably got your, height done on the wall at some point or place or another. It was inside of my parents' closet at our house, but you would go through and you could actually see exactly how tall different people are at different ages. You have the same thing for Belle, except for it's in French. So maybe you'll see the things and the numbers and you won't really put together what it is, but it's French. It doesn't say years, it says alms. I think it's alms. Alms sounds like Hans. Hans was the bad guy, by the way. Frozen. Spoiler alert. So while you're going through there, inside of the main area, there are a few different really cool details that we can take a look at too. We'll just point out a few of them. On the wall, there are a teacup along with a teapot, a reference to Mrs. Potts and Chip. And then there's also a book called A Belle as Bois Dormant, which is Sleeping Beauty in French. So she's actually reading Sleeping Beauty, which is the same book that she'd be reading in the next scene as well. But anyway, that's besides my. Okay, so then we'll go into Maurice's workshop. Now this is where things get really cool because inside of Maurice's workshop, we don't just have like the coolest transition of that mirror effect. In fact, let me know in the comments. Do you guys want me to tell you how the mirror effect works? Because I figured it out like years ago. But at the same time, I think it's a really cool mirror effect, even if you know how it works. But let me know in the comments. Should we do it or not? Well, you guys let me know if you want us to do it or not. If we get 3 yeses, we'll do it. Or if we get 3 no's, we won't. Just put it that way. So while you're inside of the mirror room, if you look up on the shelves, you can find all these different woodworking things. But one of the cool things about these woodworking things is one of the things that you can find at the top is a prototype of what would eventually become the music box that's inside of Beast Castle and the Be Our Guest restaurant. So if you look there, you can find a miniature version of it along with some of the sketches for what Maurice wanted. So when they would go through and you would see that inside there, it's actually a gift from Maurice to Belle and Beast for their happy times. Yay! Okay, we got 2 yeses so far. We need a 3rd yes if you guys want to hear it. I'm going to get a drink of water because I'm talking a cajillion miles a minute right now. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. We'll talk about the mirror. Okay. All right. Pretend this is a mirror. Wait a minute. We need another piece of paper to really make this. Okay. Pretend this is a mirror. So the mirror is just on the wall. It's about yay high, okay? So originally it starts off with one glass piece, okay? And this is all you see. You don't see anything else, nothing else whatsoever, just one glass piece. Now, what happens is while it is moving, it starts to grow. While it's growing, it's literally just showing more of that mirror, like it's just kind of going through. However, eventually gets to the point where there's a line going down the middle. Now, what happens is while they're going through and they're swooping down and having the animation going through, one of the animation pieces swoops in, and while it swoops in, there's another mirror that moves into the place. So it makes it look like it's a door that's coming through. Now, when they do this, they're actually adding in a second mirror that's cleverly hidden behind the wall. So that mirror moves in, and then when the doors open up, it's the two mirrors actually separated from one another. So this mirror is always right here in front of you, and then the second mirror is actually behind a wall. It swoops over, and then the two of them open up from one another. Overall, really, really cool effect. Still absolutely love it, even when you know what's happening there. Let's continue our tour because we still have a few different locations that we have to hit before we wrap this bad boy up. Our next up is going to be Pinocchio's Village House. Now, over at Pinocchio's Village House, there are several different rooms that are found in the restaurant, but if you pay close attention to the different rooms, you'll notice that every single room is themed around a different character from the film. We got a Blue Fairy room, a Geppetto room, a Figaro room, a Cleo room, a Monstro room. We've got a Jiminy Cricket room, and then Pinocchio is just the starring attraction. So he's kind of scattered throughout all the different rooms, interacting with all the different characters. However, let's talk about the coolest hidden Mickey. Not the coolest hidden Mickey. We already talked about the coolest hidden Mickey earlier. Let's talk about the smallest hidden Mickey found in Fantasyland. So while you are inside the Blue Fairy room, which is the one that's closest to the restrooms that are right outside, if you look on the right-hand side of the wall, so there's three different walls. There's a wall, wall, wall. So if you're facing me, the right would be over here. So don't look at this one. Don't look at this one here. Look at this one that's over here. Right above the banner where it says the dream that you wish will... No. It says... I don't know. It says... It's got a banner there, and I'm just drawing a blank on what the banner says. Right above it, there is in a very, very small, very, very minuscule hidden Mickey that is kind of hidden there. So take a look at that next time you're there. Going across the way, are going to go to I'm sorry, not Pinocchio's Village House. We're just at Pinocchio's Village House. We go to Mickey's Philheart Magic. Now, Mickey's Philheart Magic has gone through so many different changes throughout the years because it did not open up as Mickey's Philheart Magic. It actually opened up as Mickey Mouse Review. Eventually, that would be replaced with Magic Journeys, which was a 3D show that originally started over in Epcot and then made its way over here, along with the 3D short Working for Peanuts, which was a Chip and Dale short cartoon that was in theaters in 3D. It was Walt Disney's actually first dabble in 3D in actual theaters, and they would eventually make it, bring it over here to this location. Then eventually became the, not the Festival of the Lion King, the Celebration of the Lion King? Legend of the Lion King. The Legend of the Lion King. So they would have the Legend of the Lion King, which actually held the record for most live performances ever of any show. Like, not just Disney show, any show in the world was right there in that theater. Eventually what they would do is they would go through and replace it with Mickey's Philheart Magic in October of 2003. So it's actually going to be turning 20 years old this year. Really, really cool. When they actually would go through and create this short cartoon or this show, they would actually bring back many, not all, but many of the different animators that worked on the original cartoons. So for instance, when you are watching Lumiere, the animators who worked on Lumiere were, you guessed it, the actual animators who worked on Beauty and the Beast. Same thing for Ariel. Ariel was actually animated by the actual artist who originally drew her, Glenn Keane. Yes, Glenn Keane. And several others, Aladdin and Jasmine. Most of the characters that you can find on screen were actually drawn from the actual animators who created them originally. Now, this would be the first time most of these characters would actually appear in three-dimensional form, especially things like Donald Duck. One of the cool things about the Donald Duck is if you listen to the dialogue, now we all know, maybe we don't all know, but we all know that the original voice of Donald Duck was Clarence Ducky Nash. If you actually listen to the dialogue that is found here, it is actually all original dialogue from Donald Duck from the 1930s, 1940s, and 1950s cartoons. So everything that Donald says in there is actual dialogue from the old films. I don't know if this is still true with the Coco scene that was added last year. However, it might still be. I'm still doing a little bit of research trying to figure out if it's still the exact same thing. Right across or right around the corner from that area, we do have a Peter Pan's Flight, one of my favorite attractions of all time. Right outside of that, we do have the Richard Lapierre Jr. barrel, which is a Lost Boys barrel. If you look underneath it, it's actually a fire hydrant. This is actually a reference to the actual Reedy Creek fire chief. Now this barrel will actually change every single time that there is a brand new fire chief for Reedy Creek. It's changed several times throughout the years. Every time they get a new fire chief, it does get a new name put on this barrel. So it's a cool little reference there. There's also another reference of the fire chief over by Big Thunder Mountain Railroad as well. So if you want to see a cool reference, or if you want to be referenced, become the fire chief over at Reedy Creek, and you'll have your own thing over at Magic Kingdom. 2 of them, to be exact. Peter Pan's Flight got an extended queue about 10 years ago now. Now, this extended queue is more interactive. You go through the actual house of the Darling Children. But one of my favorite things to remind people of is when you're going through this area, you're actually going through an old restroom. This is the old restroom that I used to clean back on my college program. The restrooms were torn down and replaced with this brand new interactive room. Some of the cool different areas inside of this is if you look at the date that's on the calendar over by John's bed, you can see that the calendar is actually circled on December 5th, 1901, 1903, the exact same day that the original Peter Pan debuted in play form for James Barrie. In addition to that, we also have Tinkerbell Flies Around the Room. We also have the blocks spell out Peter Pan, and a lot more really cool details. You have to just go take a look and check it all out. Going on the actual attraction itself, while you're going through it, it is actually fashioned after an old pulley system, or I don't even know, the cargo system. So if you would actually go into a giant warehouse and have it so different crates were being hoisted all around the room, that's actually how they would do it, is they would have it so these things would be hanging from the ceiling. It's the same exact technology that they use for Peter Pan's Flight. So in reality, you're just cargo being hoisted around a giant warehouse. Pretty cool. One last thing to talk about for Peter Pan's Flight. If you are going through the London scene, there are a few historical inaccuracies. Number one, there wouldn't be that many cars on the road because not many cars actually existed. And number two, if you look at all the cars on the road, they're all driving on the right-hand side instead of the left-hand side. So technically, they're driving the American way instead of the UK way, which is wrong because we're actually in the UK during this part. Right across the way, we have It's a Small World. It's a small world after all. It's a Small World originally debuted in the 1964 World's Fair. Eventually, it would make its way over to Disneyland, and then, of course, it would open up on October 1st, 1971, here at Walt Disney World. Now, my favorite thing to point out for the Small World attraction is while you're going through and you see several different dolls, first off, one of the things that I think is really cool is just about a month ago, I want to say, about 1 month ago, they added a brand new doll, or they changed up one doll. So now the doll is actually in a wheelchair to, because people said there's no dolls with disabilities. Like, what are you talking about? What about the kids with disabilities? We want to have it so they're represented too. So actually, when you're going through, there's a set of 3 dolls, and then the next set of 3 dolls that you see, the one in the middle, is in a wheelchair. I think it's really cool to kind of have that little accessibility thing, so kids actually, have the connection in case they are in a wheelchair. But around that area, we have the Eiffel Tower. If you look hanging from the Eiffel Tower, you'll see a doll with massive glasses on. This is actually a reference to Mary Blair. Mary Blair is one of the people who would actually be, or she was the main person who was responsible for the art design for It's a Small World. And she actually has her own hidden Mary Blair doll in every single park around the world. She did not ask for this. Actually, she did not want it at all, but the other Imagineers decided to hide it. So if you're over in Disneyland, there's a hidden Mary Blair over by their Tower of, or not Tower of Terror, by the Eiffel Tower. She's hanging from the Eiffel Tower here. She is hidden in different spots all around. We found her in Paris. I just can't remember where she was in Paris. This is a good question, so let's talk about this. Are the poles holding up Small World tent lances? They are the joust, the giant joust. Now, so the story about this is when you're going through all of Fantasyland, if you look through all the original Fantasyland things, so things like Peter Pan's Flight, It's a Small World, even PhilharMagic and the Princess Fairy Tale Hall, and then even whatchamacallit, the Carousel. When you're actually looking at these different things, the theming area is you are in the 1400s in medieval England, and a circus has come to town. So what they decided to do is they don't have enough supplies to actually put up these brand new attractions they're going to be inviting you into. But while you're going through them, they needed to use different things. So that's why you'll see the jousting poles are found holding up the tent. There's a lot of different things that you can find throughout the land that are references to the fact that they actually moved this entire area into the spot to create this fair, and they just used what was available to help create. So it's a very, very cool idea of using this 1400s England. And I'm going to keep on pointing out that 1400s England, 1400s England, 1400s England. Put that in your brain, because we're about to get to the coolest thing about 1400s England and the coolest detail in all of Fantasyland, in my personal opinion. Is the Skyway Lodge still in Old Fantasyland, or did they finally remove it? It is not that. It's going to be where the Tangled Tower is currently. However, there are a few different references to the old Skyliner or the Skyway to Tomorrowland that can be found throughout the land. While you're going through the land, you can find different bricks on the ground that are in a circular fashion. That actually used to be where the old poles were that would hold up the Skyway. So while you're walking through, they have gotten rid of most of them. I think there's only 2 that are left, both of them kind of by It's a Small World. So if you kind of go through the area and take a look, pay attention to that, and you'll see them. Before we get over to the Tangled Toilets, we're going to point out one final little fun fact that I like, and then we're going to do Tangled Toilets, and we're going to talk about the coolest transition in all of Walt Disney World. So right above Peter Pan's extended queue, you'll find a picture of a deer. Now, if you look at this deer, it doesn't seem like anything special. It's not. Like, most people are like, oh, it's Bambi. But there's no other Bambi references around here, so why on earth is this deer here? Well, this deer actually did originally go along with the Skyway location, which was right across the way. If you were over by the Skyway station, you used to be able to hear some music that sounded like bum bum ba-dum, ba-da-ba-da-dum, ba-da-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-da-dum, which was like elf music. Now, the reason this is because they wanted to have it so there was a simple transition that kind of reminded people, or not reminded people, but it was going to be a way to kind of connect the idea of Fantasyland and Tomorrowland, much like they had the connection between Fantasyland and Tomorrowland over in Disneyland. However, over there, what they do have is the Matterhorn. So the Matterhorn has like the Swiss feel, it's got the elf feel, and then also it has the music playing all the time, still to this day. You can hear the music that used to sit over by the Skyway area, which was in this woodsy area. It was supposed to feel like the Alps, but one of the most important things is the deer that can be found here can also still be found over in Disneyland to this day as a reference to the Alps. So that's why he's here. It's literally the only last remaining part of the Skyway and that music that used to sit in the area. That's the only reason that deer is there. Okay, we got 2 more things here. So first off, let's talk a little bit about the Tangled Toilets. There are 2 different bathrooms, one for men, one for the women. The men is going to be themed around a soldier bunker. So when you're actually in there, the different stalls are actually supposed to be horse stalls. And then if you look all around, the main weapon of choice is scattered around the bathroom, which is frying pans. Who knew? Also, inside the men's room, you can find 3 different wander posters. The 3 different wander posters are for the little guy, the little old man that they put the wings on as Cupid. I can't think of his name right now. Another guy, and then Flynn Rider. And Flynn Rider originally had another picture over his nose with like the nose not being right. Or no, I'm sorry. The nose is not right underneath, and he drew his own nose on top of it and pinned it on. And almost a week after the entire area was, created, someone stole the nose that was painted on. So someone's got that at their house right now, and it's not me, unfortunately. I wish it was, but it's not. No, it's not. I promise. In the women's room, I've not been in there, but from what I've told, it's the paintings of Rapunzel, all of her artwork. And then if you look at the shelves at the top, it is all a reference to the different things that you would do during the 7 a.m., the usual morning lineup. And you would have things like chess, books, darts, and different things that you would actually do during the song. And that brings us to our final part, which is our transition from Fantasyland into Liberty Square. So while you're going from Fantasyland into Liberty Square, it's very important that you remember that we are in like medieval times England when you're inside of Fantasyland. And then it's also important to remember that you're in 1700s America when you are in Liberty Square. Now, with that in mind, let's do a little transition. So while you are starting off inside of Fantasyland, when you're going to, so we're doing two transitions here. We're doing a transition from one land to another land, aka from Europe to America, and then we're also doing a time transition from medieval times to the 1700s. So there are two different things that we need to use as teleportation. Both of them are going to be with the Columbia Harbor House. So first off, the Columbia Harbor House is going to serve a purpose that's, first off, very common, a harbor. So one way for us to travel across the ocean is from going from one harbor to another harbor. So our first harbor is going to be the harbor that is at Columbia Harbor House in Fantasyland. And while you're going under that bridge, you're sailing across the ocean until you get to the other harbor, which is now in America. That's a cool one, but it's not enough, because that's not enough of a detail to really transition us from one spot to another. So the other transition is probably my favorite transition and favorite detail in maybe all of Magic Kingdom, because when we're in medieval times, one thing that most people didn't know how to do, and like literally like 99% of the population didn't know how to do, was read. Reading was not a common thing for people to do. So if you were in medieval times and you're going to a restaurant you've never been to and you don't know what they serve there, you'd have to rely on pictures. So out front of Columbia Harbor House, you'll see like this iron thing. It's two animals. One of them is a chicken, underneath is a fish, because inside of Columbia Harbor House they serve chicken and they serve fish. You didn't know how to read, so that's the way for you to know. But when we make this transition and we travel across time while we're going underneath this little breezeway, we'll get to the Columbia Harbor House on the other side, and now more people know how to read. It's a more common practice. So when we look at the sign here, it says Columbia Harbor House, and underneath it shows the three things that they serve there: chicken, sandwiches, and fish. And that, my friends, is our take a hike around Fantasyland. Oh, any questions before we wrap this up? I just talked a lot. Considering I kind of like, I don't know about you guys, but I kind of like the idea of not knowing what we're going to talk about until you guys vote for it. It makes it more of a fun challenge. Do you guys enjoy, like, I don't know if it's just me because I like having the challenge of it. Like I like when we go through and I have something planned and stuff, like that's fun too. But I kind of like coming in and being like, I have no idea what I'm going to be talking about today until you guys tell me what we're talking about today. I think that's why I like the I think you should do another 2 hours and do Adventureland right now. So let's start with the transition from, you know what, let's I'm not even joking. Let's do it. And I am exhausted. Let's do the transition from Main Street USA to Adventureland, because while we're all here, we might as well. And then eventually we'll get into everything else. So the transition from from Main Street USA to Adventureland is one of my favorite transitions. I know I just said that about the other one, but it's such a subtle one, and it's something that most people walk by all the time without ever really paying attention to it. Eric, I swear, if I start talking for the next 2 hours about Adventureland, I'm coming to Minnesota and taking care of you. But one of the really cool things, so this is going to be the only one. So one of the cool things about this transition is it actually focuses on the Crystal Palace. So the Crystal Palace is supposed to be this nice, elegant restaurant. If you've ever eaten there, it's a nice, elegant restaurant. It's not, though. So one part, the majority of the restaurant faces towards Main Street USA. So if you're looking at the front door kind of is right here and moves over towards Main Street USA. Everything is very nice, very pristine. It's all these wonderful glass, blah, 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 blah. There's nothing like on the windows. But then if you look to the right-hand side of the door, your right-hand side, to the right-hand side of the door, you'll notice that above all of the windows, there are these different curtains, and all the different curtains are green and white. And this is actually supposed to blend in with the woods that we're going to get to for Adventureland. So if you look at that area, it's not pristine, it's not clean on the outside. It's actually dark and shady and mysterious because it's supposed to go in with a theming of Adventureland. So that part is actually in, not really, but it's in Adventureland to kind of give us that idea of what the transition is from Main Street USA into Adventureland. Okay. Do you know how much dirt they had to bring in to fill the submarine ride? I am not positive exactly. At least 2 handfuls. But I honestly have no idea. I don't have any idea how much dirt, but it would have been a lot. There was a lot of stuff back there. I was actually interviewed on a podcast earlier tonight, and we talked about how I got a piece of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea because our manager allowed us to take a piece of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea on its last day. Okay, any other questions before we wrap this bad boy up? Doesn't look like it. Okay. So on that note, tonight's episode, as always, is sponsored by It's All About the Mouse Travel Jazz Hands. Make sure you stop by. It's allaboutthemousetravel.com for all of your Disney travel needs. All of their services are absolutely, positively, 100% free. So make sure you book with them for your next Disney vacation. I'd like to thank everyone out there for joining us once again this week. Please keep on spreading the word about the Wednesday show and From Screen to Theme, and invite anyone and everyone to join the groups on Facebook or to subscribe over on YouTube. If you have not ordered your copies of A Closer Look At or A Closer Look At, or guess what, A Closer Look At, make sure you go visit the Shop Now button to order your books. And of course, as always, remember that anything can happen if you let it. Till next time, have a great week, everybody. Bye-bye. Goodbye now. Goodbye. Bye-bye now. Goodbye. Bye-bye now. Are they gone? Are they gone? Oh, good. My cheeks are just killing me. I just can't stand